I thought my dad was paying for my wedding out of the kindness of his heart and being involved for once until he sits me down one day before and demands I make this one speech, acknowledge his wife as my real mom, appreciate her for the contributions in my life. So I say okay and thank her for all the horrible things that she's done to me. Now dad is mad because his disgusting reality is out and everyone is seeing what he is, so he's sending me this legal notice to pay him for all that he's spent on my wedding. When most people dream of their wedding day, they want everything to be perfect. They want their closest, most loved ones to be present, and they want that day to be the happiest day in their life. Last year when I got engaged to my fiancé, Matt, 30 male, I wanted that as well. My father, who I did not really have a relationship with while growing up, stepped up and paid for my whole wedding. I thought maybe things were finally starting to change for the better. That was until my father sat me down the night before my wedding and told me what his real intentions were. My relationship with my father has been distant for as long as I can remember. Although he was not a bad man, he never really showed up for me when I needed him. I was young when he remarried and he seemed to completely focus on his new wife after that. Growing up, I was always treated like a last-minute thought, someone he checked in on but never truly showed any interest in. My mother raised me almost entirely by herself. She helped me through everything and was my pillar of support. My stepmother, however, was completely different. I never felt close to my stepmother. From the moment she entered my life, it was clear that she had no intention of developing a relationship with me. Rather, she appeared determined to establish her dominance and guarantee that I understood my position. She was demanding, manipulative and judgmental. It was not just the normal conflict that sometimes develops between stepfamilies. She deliberately made my life challenging. She was never outright cruel, but her subtle digs and sarcastic comments made me feel small and out of place. Unfortunately, my father ignored it all. All that seemed to matter to him was that he was happy with her. When Matt and I got engaged, I did not have high expectations for my father. I thought he would attend the wedding, say a few kind words and then return to his own life. To my surprise, he offered to help pay for the wedding. At first, I was not sure what to think. He has never been the type of father to get too involved in my life, so I was taken aback by his sudden generosity. I was hesitant, but Matt and I were thankful and part of me hoped that this was his way of making amends, of finally becoming the father I had always wanted him to be. The wedding planning process went smoothly for months. My father maintained the respectful distance, which I appreciated. He contributed financially but did not interfere with Matt's or my decisions. My mother and I handled most of the details, and I felt like things were finally coming together. However, I was unable to shake the feeling that there was more to my father's sudden involvement. It just did not feel right, but I pushed those feelings aside, telling myself I was overthinking it and that he was truly making up for lost time. Then everything changed the night before the wedding. My father sat me down for a conversation that I will never forget. He was not interested in discussing the wedding arrangements or offering words of support. Instead, he made a request that shook me to the core. He told me I would have to give a special speech at the reception. He insisted that I refer to his wife, my stepmother, as my real mother in public. He wanted me to stand in front of everyone and thank her for the alleged role she had played in my life, for all the contributions she had made to my upbringing, and for being a loving and supportive role model throughout my childhood. I was being asked to honor this woman at my wedding. This was the woman who had only made my life difficult and made me feel like I did not belong. The idea was insane. My stepmother was never a mother to me. She was never even a friend, and I was not going to pretend she was in front of all my friends and family. My father's request felt like a betrayal. He was now asking me to act like I loved her and that she had not made me feel bad for years. After all that time I had to put up with her behavior and keep quiet for the sake of maintaining peace. I did not want to start a fight the night before my wedding, so I simply nodded and said I would think about it. But I knew deep down that I could not give the speech he wanted. My wedding was supposed to be an unforgettable celebration of my relationship with Matt. Surrounded by people who genuinely loved and supported us, I was not going to let my father turn it into an act in which I had to pretend like his wife was God. The next day, everything seemed perfect. Matt and I were surrounded by our loved ones. The venue was incredible and I felt like the happiest person in the world. My father's demand, however, weighed heavily on my mind. I knew I would have to give my speech at some point during the reception, but I had not decided what I was going to say yet. When the moment finally arrived, as I had planned, I thanked my parents for their support. However, I found it difficult to say what my dad wanted me to say about my stepmother. Rather, I thanked her for all the horrible things she had done to me over the years in a straightforward and pointed acknowledgement. It was not a long speech, but it was enough to make everyone in the room realize that things were not as perfect as my father wanted them to believe. I could feel the tension in the room the moment I finished speaking. People were not sure how to react. My father's face became red with rage and I could see the shock in my stepmother's eyes. They had been exposed. The facade they had worked so hard to keep up for all these years had crumbled in an instant. My father had spent years pretending that everything was fine and that his new family was ideal, and I had just snapped his pretense with a few words. Things quickly got worse following the wedding. My father was furious with me because I went against his wishes. He called me ungrateful and disrespectful. He could not understand why I had not simply followed his plan, why I had not been willing to contribute to the happy family image he desired. But in my heart, I knew I had done the right thing. I was not going to lie about my stepmother or pretend that she had not caused me so much pain. A few weeks after the wedding, I got a legal notice in the mail. My father demanded that I repay him for the money he has spent on the wedding. The notice detailed each bill from the venue to the flowers, and the total was enormous. It was clear that for him this was about more than just money. It was about authority. He wanted to punish me for not giving him the speech he wanted and for not recognizing his wife as my real mother. This was his way of reminding me that he still had authority over me and could make my life difficult if I did not do what he wanted. I was completely devastated. I had hoped that my father had helped with the wedding out of love, but now it was clear that his financial support came with conditions, that his generosity was just another tool for manipulating me. He seemed more concerned with preserving the image of his new family than with my happiness. Matt has been incredibly supportive throughout the entire process. My lawyer assured me that my dad did not have a strong case as the legal battle dragged on. There had been no formal agreement that I would repay the money, and everything had been given with the expectation that it was a parental contribution to the wedding rather than a loan. But that did not stop my father from pursuing the case, and it became clear that this was more about causing me pain than recovering his money. My relationship with my father deteriorated even more over the legal notice. We did not talk much, and when we do, it's always heated. He expected me to apologize and somehow make amends for what I had said at the wedding, but I could not make myself do it. I had spent my entire life trying to please him, to be the daughter he wanted, and I was not willing to do it any longer. The wedding served as a turning point in my life. It was at this point that I realized I could not change my father or make him see things my way. However, as I write this, I am caught in a dilemma. Maybe I did not have to go against my father in this way. He and his wife were horrible to me, but that did not mean I had to be horrible to them. I feel like at some point I would have at least had a relationship with my dad if I had not done this, and I'm not sure if that was the right decision for me to make now. Maybe I should not have publicly humiliated them. To anyone reading this, AITA, for humiliating my father and stepmother at my wedding, Update 1. Hey, guys! So it has been 2 months since my father issued the legal notice demanding compensation for the wedding. To say that the last few months have been difficult would be an understatement. While my lawyer guarantees that there is not much to worry about in terms of legal issues, the emotional impact has been overwhelming. It is like someone has drawn a line and you cannot go back. Initially, I found myself thinking about the events of my wedding. Was there anything I could have done differently? Maybe I should have ignored my father's request and avoided talking about my stepmother at all. But every time I got down that road, I remember how I felt in that moment, how years of frustration and hurt shot up to the surface, and how I could no longer pretend that everything was fine. It was impossible for me to stand there and lie about our relationship. However, the consequences of my decisions still sting. Matt has been my rock through it all. He has stood by me while I have vented, cried, and second-guessed myself, all the while believing that I had every right to tell the truth. He reminds me that this wedding was supposed to be a celebration for us, not a platform for family politics. His constant support kept me rational. I consider myself blessed to have him by my side, especially as things with my father continue to get worse. My lawyer responded to the legal notice with a formal letter stating that there was no agreement for repayment and that my father's contributions were made freely as a gift, not a loan. It seems unbelievable that lawyers are involved in what should have been a happy family occasion. I know I have said it 1,000,000 times, but what hurts the most despite the legal battle is not the financial demand, but the simple fact that my father values control over our relationship. I tried to contact my father soon after receiving the notice, hoping that we could resolve this outside of court. I thought that if we sat down and talked, we might be able to reach an agreement. I was even willing to repay him, but he did not want the money right away. It was clear very quickly that he was not interested in reconciliation, only in taking back what he believed he was owed. He believes I disrespected him and his wife and should pay the consequences. It feels like the final nail in the coffin of any previous relationship we had. My stepmother has remained completely silent throughout this ordeal. I have not heard anything from her, and I think she's happy to let my father handle things. That silence, however, speaks a great deal to me. She has never cared about having a genuine relationship with me, and now she has no reason to pretend. If anything, she will see this as a victory. My father, as always, is on her side. All of this has left my mother heartbroken. She has witnessed firsthand how my father's absence affected me as I grew up, and now she's watching as our relationship falls apart completely. She's trying her hardest to help me. I know that, But I can see that she's really hurt by all of this. She had always hoped that my father and I could find a way to bridge the gap, but it appears that the gap has only grown bigger. Now I'm caught between wanting to stand up for myself and not wanting to lose my father completely. But as time passed, it became clear that the relationship we had was never truly what I wanted or needed. My father has always been distant, emotionally unavailable when consumed by his own life, especially with my stepmother. I guess I have always had the hope that one day things would change, that he would finally see me, understand me and show me the love and support I have always wanted. But now I realize it might never happen. My father wants to assert his dominance to remind me that he is in charge, but I will not give him that power. I refuse to be manipulated any longer. Even though it is draining, I know that standing firm is the only way to truly break free from the emotional hold he has had on me for so many years. As the court date approaches, I am preparing myself for the worst. I'm aware that this will not be an easy task and that my father will most likely make things as difficult as it can get. However, I know that I have Matt, my mother, and a group of friends who will always be there for me. I have no idea what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I feel a sense of clarity. I'm not the same as I was before the wedding. I have grown and I'm learning to prioritize my own well-being, even if it means leaving people who are supposed to love me. Update 2. 5 months have passed since my father's legal notice, and while the situation is far from over, I have found peace amid the chaos. The legal process is taking longer than I expected, with several back and forths between our lawyers. My father has kept on demanding that I repay him for the wedding costs, while my lawyer is continuing to argue that there was no expectation of repayment. The case is not particularly strong on my father's part, but the emotional weight of it is still very much present. In the months following the wedding, I have had time to reflect on everything that has taken place. The initial shock and anger have faded, to be replaced in some ways by an overwhelming sadness and acceptance. It is becoming clearer to me that my father's actions are not only about the wedding speech but about something much deeper: his inability to let go of control and his need to assert his authority even at the expense of his relationship with his daughter. I have come to terms with the fact that my relationship with my father may never recover. He has made it clear through both his words and actions that he values his pride and his image more than he values his daughter and his connection with her. Growing up, I used to think that if I just tried harder, if I was more patient or more understanding, maybe things would change and get better. But now I see that no amount of effort on my part can fix what has been broken for so long. And if at all our relationship had to improve, he had to put in efforts as well. In an odd way, the legal battle has forced me to face the reality of my relationship with my father. For years, I have held on to an unattainable version of him, one in which he cares deeply about me, is willing to work on our relationship, and wishes to be a meaningful part of my life. But the truth is that version of him has never existed. He has always been distant, and now he's showing me how far he will go to keep control. I have stopped trying to contact my father. After months of silence from him, except through our lawyers, I realized that continuing to try to make things right would only hurt me more. I have done my part by trying to communicate, find common ground and understand his point of view, but he is clearly not interested in meeting me halfway. That realization was painful, like a final confirmation that the father I wanted and needed would not be there for me in the way I had always hoped. Letting go has been difficult, but it has also been liberating. I no longer feel compelled to seek his approval or go to great lengths to please him. I have come to terms with the possibility that the legal case may take longer to resolve than I had anticipated, even though I still wish it would end quickly. I just want it all to be over. I have not even had time to breathe since my wedding. I'm hoping to get this done as soon as possible. Update 3. It has been 8 months since I received that awful legal notice from my father, and it still hurts. It is hard to believe it has been so long because everything feels like it happened yesterday. The shock has worn off a bit, but the frustration still exists. I never imagined myself in a legal battle with my own father, and the thought of it makes me feel like I'm in a bad dream that I cannot wake up from. The legal process is taking longer than expected, as my lawyer warned me. There has been back and forth between the lawyers, a lot of paperwork and more waiting than I expected. I guess I assumed it would be over by now, but that was probably wishful thinking. According to my lawyer, cases like this can drag on for a while, particularly when there are strong feelings involved, and wow, are there strong feelings involved in this case? It is not even about money. It never was, at least for me. For my father, I'm sure that's still part of it, but for me, this feels more like a power struggle. It is as if my father is trying to prove a point, to show me that he still has control even though I'm an adult with my own life now. I was always nervous at the beginning of all this. My heart raced whenever I received a letter or an update from my lawyer. I would lose sleep over it, replaying conversations in my head and trying to figure out what went wrong. I kept wondering if I should have just followed my father's wishes at the wedding, even though I knew deep down that I could not have done it. But as time went on, I realized that even though it resulted in this mess, I had made the right decision for me. The anxiety is still there, but it is not as overwhelming as it was in the early months. I am learning to deal with it and keep it from taking over my life completely. In a strange way, this entire experience has made me more aware of the people I do want in my life. Matt and I have grown even closer during this process, and I do not know what I would do without him. He has been my rock through it all, reminding me that we are creating our own lives together, and that in the bigger picture of things, my father's drama does not have to define our future. We have been working on our plans, looking at houses and discussing the type of life we want to lead. It has been a nice distraction from the chaos, and it has helped me remember what is truly important. Matt's support has been invaluable, but my mother has also been a huge source of strength for me. She has seen me through a lot over the years, and this situation is no exception. She is heartbroken about how things have turned out with my father, but she has never made me feel wrong. If anything, she reminded me that it is okay to stand up for myself even if it is uncomfortable. I believe she understands better than anyone how difficult my father can be, and how difficult this has been for me, and just having her on my side makes all the difference. I have also relied more on my friends than I ever imagined I would. They have been there to remind me that while the legal mess is huge right now, it will not define my life forever. When I get too caught up in it, they're the ones who pull me out of it and help me see the big picture. We have had more wine nights than I can count. Just sitting around talking about everything from the lawsuit to random topics like new shows or silly high school memories, it served as a reminder that despite how it may appear, I am not alone in this. One of the most difficult aspects of this entire experience has been coming to terms with the fact that my father and I may never have the relationship I had hoped for. I have spent so many years trying to work things out with him, hoping that one day we would get closer or that he would finally see me for who I am, but after everything that has happened, I realize that that may never happen, and while this is painful to accept, it is also freeing in some ways. I'm giving up hope that he will suddenly change and become the father I always wanted. Instead, I'm focusing on the relationships in my life that are positive and supportive. I believe the most significant shift for me over the last 8 months has been realizing that I do not have to keep chasing something that is not there. I have spent so much time trying to mend my relationship with my father, trying to be the daughter he expects of me, whereas he has never tried to be the father I expected him to be. And I'm tired of it. It is exhausting and not fair to me. I cannot keep bending over backward to make him happy, especially if it means sacrificing my own mental health. It has taken some time for me to let go of that pressure, but I'm getting there. Of course, the legal issues are not yet behind me. We're still waiting for a few things to be resolved, and my father may drag this out even longer, but I am trying not to let that possibility bother me too much. At this point, I'm taking it one day at a time and concentrating on what I can control. I have realized that I cannot make my father change or force him to see things my way. All I can do is protect myself and my own happiness, which is what I am focusing on right now. Update 4. It has been a year since my father sent that legal notice, and thankfully this nightmare has finally ended. The case was officially settled a few weeks ago, and I cannot express how relieved I am. We were able to settle out of court after months of back and forth, which means there will be no more lawyers, paperwork, or dragging this out. It is as if a weight has been lifted from my shoulders. In the end, I ended up paying a portion of the wedding costs. It was not what I expected, but at this point, I'm just relieved it is over. My lawyer and I agreed that settling was the best option, and while it was a difficult decision, I knew it was the right one. I could have continued fighting, but I was tired. I did not want to spend another year caught up in this drama, constantly checking my lawyer's emails for updates. It was not worth the emotional toll it was having on me. Now that the legal battle is over, I can get back to living my life. Matt and I purchased our first home a few months ago, and it has been such a positive change in our lives. Moving into our own space has felt like a fresh start. We have been busy decorating, painting, and making the space our own. It is nice to have something to look forward to that is solely focused on us and our future together. The house is ideal for us. It's not huge, but it is cozy, and I enjoy the fact that we are creating something together. Having the house has also provided me with a fresh perspective on everything that has happened with my father for so long. I was overwhelmed by the legal battle and the emotions that accompanied it. But now that it's over, I can finally see the big picture. My life is progressing, and while my relationship with my father may never be what I wanted, I am fine with that. It is sad, of course, but I have accepted that some things just are not meant to be. My dad is not going to change, so I cannot keep hoping for that to happen. I doubt it will happen. I have not heard much from my father since the settlement, and I honestly do not expect to. Our relationship is practically non-existent at this point, and while it hurts, I am not as devastated as I expected long before the legal issues even came up. I believe I had been mourning the end of that relationship for years. By this point, I had accepted that my father and I might never be close. It is sad, but it is also somewhat relieving. I do not have to keep attempting to repair something that is irreparably damaged. My stepmother has completely vanished from my life, and I'm fine with that. She was not really a part of it to begin with, so I do not feel like I'm missing anything. My father made his decision when he married her and I made mine by walking away from both. I feel lighter now that I have released all that baggage, though it is difficult to put into words. I'm not constantly thinking about them or worried about what they are going to say or do. I have moved on and it feels good. Matt's family has been incredible throughout this difficult time. They greeted me warmly and provided the love and support I needed. Eating meals together and laughing with them has given me a warm and comforting feeling that I genuinely appreciate. Their kindness has shown me what a healthy family looks like, which is very different from my own experiences. I came to understand that family is more than just being related by blood. It is about caring for one another. I am grateful to be a part of their lives and look forward to creating more wonderful memories together. Reflecting on the past year, I have discovered a lot about myself and my goals in life. My relationship with my father has forever changed, but I have found strength in letting go of toxic relationships. My mother has always been my pillar of support, and she has shown me so much love and support during this journey. Having Matt and his wonderful family around has also made me happy. I have taken up new hobbies, set boundaries, and made my well-being a priority. Though the journey has been difficult, I now realize that true family is about love and support. I am excited about the future and ready to create a happy life full of genuine connections and the love I deserve. I genuinely hope the drama with my father and stepmother is over and they will be out of my life for good.